Part three, chapter 1, 2, and 3, we'll go through them all of Green Side Up, as these three chapters relate to the very important topic of hiring people, finding and recruiting the best people. That is the first chapter of part 1, is finding the best people, recruiting them. I would just generally summarize this as ABR, always be recruiting. So in your early days, as he suggests in his very early days, if he saw someone on the street and saw a good kid, you try to say, hey, do you ever think about coming work in the landscaping industry, and recruiting them, almost like, some weird network marketer, just, constantly reaching out to people. So whenever you find a good person, try to recruit them. One of the major other important things is that he suggests is that you got to have a company that people want to come work at. So you have to look at your company and say, hey, is this a company that I'd want to come work at? And then if not, start to create the vision and the steps that it's going to get you there. The H2B program. The H2B program. I think the summary of that, what it is there is, yeah, it's awesome. Just like a crutch, helping you get your way across if you hurt your ankle, broke your knee or whatever. But you don't want to you want to get rid of the crutch as soon as you can. You want to try to not remain dependent on that crutch, because otherwise you start walking with a limp, and that doesn't really strengthen your business. Yeah, you need it, and you may be able to maximize it, but just be careful, and you may need to have that thing all along. But you might want to start to do other kind of things, and he suggests consider a college relations program, not a college recruiting program, but develop a relationship with these areas and these places where you want to try to start to recruit people from, because in the end, you got to try many different things, because there's no silver bullet. In this industry, people are constantly cycling through. And if you're constantly cycling through new people, you got like a new company every 18 months, and that's a problem. So you have to try to find people that are in this process and that know how to recruit. And Ed LaFlamme, with his Harvest Way Consulting, he has a whole program, because one of his colleagues worked for a company called Valley Crest, and they recruited over 6,500 people that were there. So chapter 1 of part 3, offer a great work environment where people want to have work and have the opportunity for improvement. Have the mindset that you're always looking for people. Consider the H2B program, but don't develop a crutch on it. Get involved with local colleges, colleges and schools. Recruit kids out of them. Hiring folks consider it from hiring outside the industry, and then we'll get into this. But what he means about finding the right people, and we'll see that in the next chapters, which is a lot about attitude. So we'll see that, and then he says consider recruiting the Harvest Recruiting Kit, which is a kit for figuring out how to do this more effectively. Hiring right, which is chapter 2, which is focused mostly on the management level. Take the time, give them personality tests, spend some time with them, interview people. And learn from them. If you're doing as the interviewer, if you're doing all the talking, trying to sell them on the company, you're probably not learning about them. You want to learn about them, and you want to invite them for dinner, invite them for lunch. You're going to be spending a lot of time with these people. You might want to make sure that you're checking a few out and recruiting in to try to make sure that you got the right person. And what is the right person? Attitude is probably far more important than aptitude. Yes, you need both, but ultimately, he tells a story about how he interviewed 3 different guys. 2 of the guys, weren't really, but the other guy was like, yeah, I want to make a career out of landscaping. He was gung-ho, and they hired him, and he served the company right for any number of years. There we go. So take action in chapter 2. Follow these 4 suggestions, ask the right questions, and then listen. Don't do all the talking. Make calls to past employers. I didn't mention this. Simple. Check references. Would you hire this guy again? Simple question. The personality and value test, where appropriate, use those tests. Don't just interview them. There's all kinds of free online tests that you can get out there. If you're hiring managers, you want to make sure that they have what you're getting, rather than just a superficial, image of outside of the cover. And observe the candidates in various situations. He says he takes them to dinner, takes them to different places, walks with them. I had a guy who told me he always, if he took someone to lunch, he always tossed them the keys, see how they drove, because he said you find out a lot of person about just the way that they drive. And I would tend to agree with that, especially my kids, especially my 15, 16-year-old kids. Hire people with good aptitudes and attitudes. Aptitude meaning they can grow, and an attitude that they're gung-ho. So that's it for chapter 2. Now, chapter 3 on employees and their first day, and hiring employees in their first day. And so he tells a story about how many, okay, throw them in there. Hey, the guy hired, hey, could you just wait here for a minute? I got to let the crews go. And they don't give them the proper attention. So, he says, you've got to make a good first impression with your employees because, they're probably got other job offers, and how they feel about the company within the first few hours is going to stick with them. So I know it stuck with me, 20 years later for how I felt when I was treated and my first employer. And, you have to, he goes on and tells a story about how a guy makes a big, to-do to welcome the people, give them the history of the company as the CEO, spends a lot of time with them, gives them an employee handbook. So tells them all this, yet after 4 hours spends with them in the morning. And some people would say, well, that's too much time to spend with a new employee, man. And then he sends them home for the rest of the day to go read the handbook to find out, and wow, you waste that much time. Yep, because they're going to be there long term. And so we want these people to be great. So, as a first day, first impression, if you're going to be busy in the morning, he uses the example of a dinner party. I mean, if you invite the person over for, if your party's not going to be ready to 6:30, don't invite them there at 6. If you don't want them to help, set the table and like clean up the dishes. No, you want to have everything ready. So if you're going to be busy in the morning when you're trying to roll out crews, have them come a little bit later. Make sure that you've got the time to spend with them. Spend the time with them. And look and explain to them the job expectations, what they're going to be. Give them an orientation, a proper orientation of the company. Take a lot of time, just as you would with any guest at your house, and tell them and introduce them, show them how they're going to be able to have a career at the company. Because you know what? They're going to go home, and people are going to ask them, hey, how was your first day at work? And they're either going to want to go back there or not, and it's going to be seated. So make the good first impression. And highlight, as I said, how all employees could make a career out of your company. But you may not be able to do all these things, but in the end, Ed says, do whatever you can because you want to make your new employees' first day a great day. So there it is. Take action. Make the first day a positive one for every new employee. Create a process. Once you start to do this, start to figure this out and make a process out of orientation and bringing people on because it's going to continue to happen. You may as well, like every new client that you bring on, have a process for doing that. Tell the story of your company, where you're going, where you've been, what you're doing, what your expectations are, and be clear about those expectations within the organizations. So that is a little bit longer. That's chapters 1 through 3 of part 3 of Ed LaFlamme's book, Green Side Up.